In today's video in Stitch the Season 2024, we're going to work on the inside and outside covers of this beautiful journal for Santa's magical mission. In the previous video, which I'll link below, we gathered our supplies and figured out what we wanted to do. And now we're just going to continue building upon that. Just a reminder, I have a Facebook group for Stitch the Season 2024 that I hope you'll consider joining. So let's get right to the video. So now, continuing with the book assembly, I have all my pages and my cover and back cover basted. The stitches here, it's just a basting stitch that goes around. It's a very light, loose, temporary stitch. Here's one that I did by hand. You can see these very large stitches. And here's one that I did the same premise, but I attached the batting to it and I used a machine. So the stitches are wide, they're loose, and they can be easily removed. For now, that holds it together so that when I create each of the pages before I combine them, it just looks very neat. And I still have some adjustment on each of them. So I'm just going to keep the pages back to back the way I intend it to look when it's done. And I'm going to sew each page down to the spine separately. I like that because the pages are thick, and I also like to fill them with things. So that will go like this. Today we're going to work on the cover and the back cover. There are a number of things that I want to attach to the covers inside and out before I attach the covers to each other. So eventually, this is what it will look like when it's folded over. There's some give here, and I can play around with that. But that's essentially my book. When I have the crease here, I want to take my pen and just jot that down. This is my heat erasable pen, and it's just a guide for me to know where the spine is. The fold is not the entire spine, it's just most of it, and then I'll have a little buffer on either side. So I just like to kind of sketch that in. So maybe it's an inch total. And again, I can always go back and adjust, but for now, this looks pretty good. I want to start with the closure. So I have buttons here. I have 2 buttons. I can decide which one I want to use. And I have my fabric to make that closure. This is 8 by 8.5 inches. And I have a piece of batting that's just slightly less than half. So this will be my closure. I plan on sandwiching it between the back cover and the back inside cover. And then it's just going to wrap around. And I want to have a little give because I'm going to stuff things in my journal. So from here, I'll create the closure. I won't attach it to the book. I'll just pin it in place temporarily. And then I can figure out where I want my buttonhole to go so that I can stitch the button to the top of the journal and have the closure here. Now I can decide, I can have it right in the center, or I can play with it and have it maybe off center. That's a decision for a little bit later. But I do have my 2 buttons. If you want to stitch something on the cover, the name or top secret or anything, the date, you would want to do that before we start stitching the covers together. So now to make my closure, my button closure, I have my 8 by 8.5 inch square fabric that matches the cover. If you want to use a different fabric, go right ahead. And I have my batting. Now this is fusible fleece. This makes it really easy because all I have to do is line it up here on the inside, because that's where I want my fleece to go. And using an iron, I'm going to transfer the heat to melt it to the back here. I also want to make sure that it's quite close to that fold. And now I'm just going to press it with my iron. I'm trying to melt the adhesive on that fusible fleece, but I'm also trying to get a nice clean fold here. So the iron serves 2 purposes. Now once it's fused, I can even go back infuse it just one more time just to make sure it's nicely attached. Now I'm going to let this cool down because the adhesive kind of becomes a little molten. And once it's cool, it doesn't take very long. I'm going to flip it over so the right sides are together. And now I'm going to stitch down on one side here, all the way across, and just those two sides. The fold doesn't need stitching yet. So now I have it sewn right around the edge here. I used my machine to do that. I want to flip it right side out. So it's kind of like a little purse at this point. Now I'm just going to take it and gently flip it so that the right side is facing out. I don't want to see that batting, and I don't want to see the stitches. So I have it folded. I'm going to just reach in here with a pencil and just try and press out the corners. Doesn't have to be perfect, kind of like the soft edges. And now I'm just going to finger press it down. So once I have this in place, I can turn it around, see how it looks. I see that this side with my batting, I have a little bit of a fold here. I didn't press it so well. I'm going to take my iron now and press it down. This just gives a neater appearance. It's an optional step. And I'll flip it over, press it again. And now it's ready to be top stitched. You don't have to top stitch it. That's just a stitch along the edge. It's really for decorative purposes. And it's because I have two pieces of fabric that I want to hold together nicely. I do not need to seal this closed, again, because it's going to be tucked in my book. But I want to just top stitch along the edge, and I can do this by hand, or I can use my machine. And I think I'm going to use my machine. So here I have my piece all top stitched around. It looks fairly neat. I'll choose the side that doesn't have just that minor little folded pressed edge. And now I'm going to place it where I want it on my, in between the back cover and the back page here. I have my pins ready to go so that I can decide exactly how much depth I want for the top here. So I think I'll just feed this in just a little bit more. Gives it a little more support. So that looks pretty good. I'll take my pin, and I'm only going to pin it through the bottom layer. I'll do a couple of these. And I pin it only through the bottom layer, so this way, if I want to stitch something onto the inside of the book, it's easily removed. I don't have to worry about repinning it. I do want to take this little button closure and decide where I want the button and the buttonhole. So I know this has to have a little give because I'm going to be filling it. So I'll maybe move it to here. And I want my button to go this way. Up and down is the buttonhole. So of the two buttons, I think I'm going to use this lighter one. It seems to just disappear a little nicer. I want my buttons lined up so that the holes are right up top. And I'm just going to put a little mark on the top and the bottom of the button, so I can have my hole be just that size, and I'll get the button in. Now I need to attach the button to underneath this, to right here. So I'll just figure out where that goes and then just verify that that's where I want that button, and it is. So I just draw a little circle because I know that I can just attach that button accordingly. Now, if there's anything else you want to attach to your cover, stitching or whatnot, go right ahead and do that now before we combine the covers. You'll have some time to, if you rethink that and you want to add something else, we have some time for that as well, because we're not going to attach them just yet. So I'll do this off camera, attaching this button. And to create the buttonhole, what I'm going to do is use my machine and stitch a satin stitch on either side, up and down, and on the top. and then I'll cut in between. So off camera, I'll create that satin stitch with my machine on both sides, the top and the bottom. And then on camera, I'll show you how I just cut that little slit in between to make that buttonhole. It works out very well. And again, off camera, I'll attach this button. I still want to do a little more work on the inside of this journal. So I have the inside here, folded open. I have my line here, can even make it a little more pronounced. That's where the pages will be stitched down. I don't have to worry about that quite yet, but I do want to just roughly have an idea of what's going on. I have my 3 pockets here that I cut out the fabric. I have a larger one and 2 smaller ones. I'm going to take the smallest and the largest and set that aside because that's going to go on this page. And on this page, I want to create a pocket. There are a couple of ways you can do this. You can attach the pocket to the inside here by folding one edge and folding this edge so that it tucks behind your piece. And this will give the pocket this entire length. I don't really want that. What I want to do is fold over the top of the pocket. So I have a nice, neat seam here. And then I'll fold over the edges. And you can decide how deep you want your pocket. I don't want it to be terribly deep. I want my ephemera to peek through. And here's where I want to attach my ID card. So I need to have enough height that I can attach my ID card like this. I have enough give, a window here, margin, that I can attach it. But first I want to make the skeleton of this pocket. So I fold it down about 1 inch, because that's just what I like. And then I'm going to fold in on the sides. I'm not going to worry about the bottom at this point. So I'll fold that here, fold that here, roughly like that. This is really just eyeballing it. And I fold it like that. So now I'm going to press all of these sides. So I have the inside of the cover, just that sheet here, just that fabric piece here. I've pressed my inner pocket and I'll just place it where I want it, maybe right about there. Decide where I want this identification. That looks good, maybe just a little bit lower. So before I attach this pocket, I want to stitch down this identification card. Not so much the card itself, but this little pocket that it's going to go in. You can make the entrance to where you want to put the card on the side or on the top, and that's up to you. Figure out where I want it. Maybe just beneath. Yeah, maybe just right there. So now I'll pin that into place. And now I'm going to stitch with my machine, and again this can be done by hand. So I'll take this to my machine and stitch around on 3 sides, leaving an opening on the 4th. So now I've stitched down around 3 sides, and now I'm just going to take my scissors and trim it up. I'm going to remove the excess plastic. Go around here. And around the final side. So now on the back, I've stitched through a little bit of that top piece. So now I'm going to bring this to my machine and just stitch a line on the top here. And then after that, I'm going to take my page and then I'm going to take it to my machine on the page right to the edge here, and I'm going to stitch down here and down here, leaving this excess so that I can tuck it when I'm ready to actually sew the book together. So I'm quite pleased with how that came out. If in fact the pocket is so large that when I stitch my pages down, the spine attaches to the pocket, that's okay, because there's enough room in here for my ephemera. Can always take it in a little further, but I like this. I like how this is coming out. So I'm going to stitch this down, and then we'll come back and work on the double pockets on this page. So I've stitched it down on the two sides, and I've top stitched the pocket. So this pocket is complete for now. I have that little excess. There's an opening there. If you want, you can stitch that opening closed. I didn't feel the need to, because I'm just going to take this edge and tuck it under when I stitch my book closed. So that's an optional step depending on what you like. And as you can see, this is really starting to come together now. It's starting to look like the inside of a journal. Let's quickly finish up with the pockets on the other side, on the right side, the inside cover. So I'll get rid of this back piece. Now the pockets on the inside cover are just a replica of what you see here. However, there's just a little bit of a difference. I have a larger pocket here, which I want to go maybe a little bit taller than this one. So I'll kind of find my placement for that. And then I want another pocket to be just lower, maybe at about here on this one. So the first thing I'll do is I'll press my tops of the pocket, just deciding how much I want there. Start with a larger one, get a nice crisp edge up top. And then for the bottom pocket, I'll also fold over a little bit of an edge just for a neat top. You can embellish this with lace further if you'd like, or trim, but that's pretty good. So now I just want to figure out the size. I have the pocket on the left inner page here, and now over here. So I have my pocket, and now I just need to fold the edges. Start that here. Create the largest pocket first. Once I have that, I can press that edge. So once I have this pocket done, I can take my littler pocket and just match it up to the size that I want. Again, I don't have to worry about the height just yet. So I can just take that and fold that over ever so slightly to match the size of that large pocket. And so then I want my pockets to match in the same width here. Again, I'm not worrying about the base. The next step is to place the pockets exactly where I want them. So I have the pockets right here, and I think that is too high. I want my ephemera to peek out from it. So I'll pull this pocket down. That's pretty good. And then I want this other pocket right here. So I'll take this to my machine, stitch just the top here, not attaching it to the page, just that top stitch like I did here. So it has a nice finished edge. So you can decide where you want it. You have a couple of options. You can leave this top pocket large, where it goes right to the base, or when you stitch down the sides here, you can stitch across here. And that will give it so that when you put things in the pocket, they'll stand up a little higher than if they fell to the bottom of the page. So I think I'm going to stitch a little bit up here. I want the stitching to be behind where I put this top pocket to be, and then I'll just come around and stitch the top pocket on the sides here, right down. So I top stitch the pockets, and then I attach them to the page. Again, I have all this overhang, so that will be tucked in when it's time to attach the pages together. So that kind of completes where I want to finish the inside of my journal and most of the cover. I'm still thinking of another piece for the cover, but we'll work on that in the future. Right now, off camera, I'm going to sew that buttonhole and attach the button just to the cover piece, not through both pieces. In the next video, we'll start working on the pages. So I hope you're enjoying this series. In the next video, we'll start our page prompts. We'll start with prompt number 1. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Please consider joining the Facebook group for Stitch the Season 2024.